Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a round of applause for Jilliana? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jilliana Ranicar-Breese, and everything I write is true, even though sometimes it may not appear to be true. This one, because I used to live in France, in Paris. This one is called tu and vous. I'm sure everybody knows what that means. You and you, the formal and the informal. I was living in Paris in 1978 and loving my life there. My regular café cum office for meeting clients was La Palette, the famous bohemian café on the corner of the Rue de Seine and Jacques Caillot in Saint-Germain in the 6th arrondissement. One day I was inside the café in the back room having a coffee with my vintage corkscrew client, Bernard Bosquet. Bernard Bosquet was looking through my new treasures when I was listening to his love life with two mistresses, with one expecting his child, when an unusual looking woman in her early 60s pounced on me, explaining that her son was a wine wholesaler and he too had a corkscrew collection. Thus Marie-Claire Duisand entered my life. She excused herself for the spontaneous intrusion and, as she was a collector of grotesques, would like me to find her in London the missing object in her vast collection, the dentist. She demanded my name and number. I presented her with one of my 52 limited edition playing cards with my handwritten name and French telephone number. Although Marie-Claire spoke fluent French, she had the wisdom to know that I loved to speak to the French in French, and so never spoke to me in English. She invited me to her home in the chic 16th district of La Muette that I knew so well, as I had gone every day there to work before becoming a collectibles dealer, stepping over dog shit, when I worked at the OECD for 10 months. She lived in bliss with her distinguished husband Henri, a retired diamond dealer. Marie-Claire always wore elegant but discreet diamond earrings and a beautiful diamond eternity ring. I noticed because Maria, an Italian Portobello Road dealer in London, allowed me to borrow and wear about 8 Victorian diamond, sapphire, ruby, pearl and emerald 18-carat gold rings and take them to Paris on commission to sell to Hélène, a jewellery dealer in Marché Paul Bert, who did not put the rings through her books nor have them poinçonnés. Henri had a pacemaker, and his doting wife would always talk about how she would cope alone after his imminent death. Theirs was a gracious flat in the best of taste. The salon was really a private museum, with the walls lit up with bespoke show cabinets specially made for their large bisque grotesque collection. I was informed that the unglazed bisque ceramic was made in Germany pre-World War I and imported into England to be sold mainly at seaside destinations. The objects were comic, exaggerated facial features. The couple had the best collection in France and were in touch with a German collector believed to be connected with the original factory, but they needed the dentist to complete their life's work. The factory stopped importing these humorous objects when the war broke out in 1914. There were Heurté original ballet paintings gracing their living room wall, which did not have showcases. The salon was an odd shape with steps down to the seating area, so in fact the built-in showcases were on a raised level. Their dining room housed a magnificent oil painting with touches of gold leaf paint on a Piero clown harlequin by a known Italian artist. I don't recall money changing hands, but Marie-Claire would phone me in London without fail just before the Foire de Vieux Papier at the Porte de Champery to ask if I'd found anything for her. She was obsessed with her collection. Her children had grown up, so their collection was their baby. Sadly, both their children were not interested in their collection. I'm sure that is why she gravitated towards me, because I enthused and was a dealer of dreams into my clients' passions. I was passing Boots one day and thought of Henri and his love for the sugar-free bonbons. That cemented our friendship. Madame was so touched by my little gift that I was invited for seafood lunches in restaurants quite often. She even taught me how to daintily eat moule. Somehow, the topic of commercial Christmas came up, and I told her I never celebrated it because I was Jewish. She explained she thought so from my personality, and confessed she and Henri were too. That the name Duisand had been changed from the Dutch or Flemish name, that they had been hidden in the countryside during World War II, but she didn't want to talk about that tragic dark period in their lives. One day I was invited for lunch in their home, a formal event with their housekeeper serving a traditional lunch. I had always addressed Madame as vous, and I was getting fed up with the grammar. In the antique and collectibles world, everyone was addressed as tu, so I asked her if I could tutoie her. I was horrified when she refused, and so was Henri, coming to the rescue, said that I could tutoie him. After that episode, I continued with the formal vous address out of respect, but I never felt quite the same after the insult. She immediately began to address me as tu, but never gave me the permission I craved for. She came to London to visit old friends, but always stayed in a nearby hotel. Friends were like fish, she would say. They go off after 2 or 3 days. I photographed her in a Notting Hill cafe and realised on exposure that she looked a bit like a younger version of my mother. The day before I was leaving Paris for London, she failed to turn up at her chosen restaurant. Marie-Claire was a punctual lady, so I sensed she was not well. We didn't have mobile phones in those days, of course, and so there was no way of communicating. The next day I called from an airport payphone, only to find that she had fallen in the street and hit her head on the pavement on her way to meeting me, was concussed and died in hospital days later, never coming round from the coma she had fallen into. Henri wrote to tell me how sad and devastated he was. They had been married about 50 years. How ironic she always thought of life when he was no more, and here was the role reversal. I wrote on a lovely greetings card with a silhouetted man waving goodbye to a woman leaving on a train. Henri wrote back that it was the nicest card he had received and asked me to think of him as his father, and should I ever need anything, he would always be there, using the tu. I offered to send him the photo I had taken of his wife because he said he only had early ones. It took me a long time to find it and get a print, but I managed in the end. He was thrilled and placed it in an ornate silver frame, gracing his dressing table in his bedroom, so he could always see her first thing in the morning. Some years later, I was back in Paris, as I was coming less and less due to work commitments with my archive photo library, Retrograph Archive back in London, and my husband, bien sûr. I rang Henri, who invited me to his home for lunch, as he rarely left the house. It was a grey, rainy day, and I arrived 15 minutes too early, as it was hard to judge the metro timings. He opened the door himself, dressed in a dark red smoking jacket. The housekeeper had gone shopping, and he had not yet taken his shower. He was inflexible, not pleased that I had come too early, and actually asked me to go away and come back later at the given time. Not very father-like. I refused because of the rain, and I had nowhere to go, as his flat was in the residential part of the 16th. Begrudgingly, he allowed me to wait, like I was at the doctor's in the salon, until he was ready for our meeting. I politely got through the formal lunch of grilled fish with vegetables, an excellent dry white wine and a good camembert with a heavy velouté red wine, but it was not the same without Marie-Claire. I took a photo of him next to the lovely Harlequin painting, but never saw Henri again, who must now be reunited with the love of his life in the heavens above.
That is it.